In modern warfare, military dominance usually comes down to who has the biggest budget. The United States routinely deploys radar systems that cost $300 million apiece. But right now, those massive arrays are being targeted by weapons that cost less than a used sedan. Iran has engineered a fleet of Shahed drums, launching them from the backs of ordinary commercial trucks. At roughly $20,000 each, they introduce an entirely different kind of battlefield economics. The world's richest superpower is forced to spend a fortune just to swat away cheap metal. To counter Iran's broader ambitions, Washington has poured billions of dollars into a multi-decade containment strategy. They've deployed the highly sophisticated Stuxnet computer virus to sabotage Iranian centrifuges and authorized heavy bombing campaigns explicitly designed to crush their military infrastructure. Yet, the uranium enrichment continues. By carving their nuclear facilities deep underground beneath layers of solid mountain rock, Iran has managed to absorb the punishment and keep its atomic program active. Risking an all-out regional war over these subterranean labs serves a specific purpose: protecting the economic engine that allows the United States to maintain its current global financial standing. If we rewind to the 1950s, Iran held some of the largest oil and natural gas reserves on the planet. They supplied huge portions of the West's energy needs. But the agreements drawn up at the time dictated that while the land and the labor were Iranian, the vast majority of the profits belonged to Britain. In 1951, Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh decided the arrangement was over. He signed the paperwork to nationalize Iran's oil fields, ensuring the revenue would finally go to the Iranian people rather than Western corporations. The response was swift. The CIA and Britain's MI6 launched Operation Ajax, a covert mission that overthrew Mossadegh and placed the Shah of Iran, a ruler highly compliant with Western interests, in absolute power. Removing a democratically elected leader to install a Western-aligned monarch created a deep, permanent resentment across the Iranian public. The aggressive anti-American chants you hear today trace their origins directly to this specific intervention. Absolute control over Middle Eastern oil provided the necessary leverage for a larger American financial strategy that was about to take shape. By August 1971, the United States faced a severe financial crisis. Global trust in the dollar was collapsing, prompting President Richard Nixon to formally detach the U.S. currency from the gold standard. Without gold to back the currency, Washington needed a new anchor. In 1974, they approached Saudi Arabia with a specific deal. The Saudis would sell their oil exclusively in U.S. dollars, and in return, the United States would guarantee the Saudi royal family absolute military protection. Because every nation on Earth needed oil, every nation was suddenly forced to hold U.S. dollars. The Saudis took those massive dollar revenues and invested them straight back into U.S. Treasury bonds, funding the American military. This system is known as the petrodollar. This massive financial engine ran smoothly until 1979. That year, the powerful Iranian Revolution completely swept through Tehran, overthrowing the Shah and permanently expelling the United States from one of its most critical oil-producing allies. Losing a grip on Iran meant losing total control over the region's energy output. From that moment on, the U.S. was locked into a permanent, aggressive posture to ensure no other country could step out of line and threaten the petrodollar. The following year, Iraq invaded Iran. During the brutal 8-year conflict, U.S. intelligence provided battle planning assistance to Iraq, fully aware that Saddam Hussein was actively dropping chemical weapons on Iranian troops and civilians. Watching the international community turn a blind eye to these attacks forced a stark realization in Tehran. They concluded that without an extreme deterrent, the United States would eventually orchestrate their complete destruction. This is where the nuclear program becomes the ultimate threat to Washington. A nuclear-armed Iran could not be bullied or invaded. They could begin selling their massive oil reserves in yuan or euros, completely bypassing the dollar. If Iran prices its oil in another currency and pressures neighbors like Saudi Arabia to follow suit, the 1974 agreement unravels. This would remove the artificial demand that keeps the U.S. dollar at the center of global trade. Knowing a direct fight with the U.S. military is impossible, Iran designed a system to survive a decapitation strike. They call it the Mosaic Doctrine. Instead of a single vulnerable headquarters, They divided the country into 31 independent provincial commands. They paired this command structure with their natural geography. By digging deep into the massive Zagros Mountains, they built entire underground cities for their drones and ballistic missiles, shielding their arsenals from conventional airstrikes. Even when the U.S. has successfully assassinated top commanders, like Qasem Soleimani, the decentralized structure immediately fills the gap. The provincial leaders know exactly what to do without waiting for centralized orders from Tehran. Decades of Washington's preferred tactics, crushing sanctions, targeted killings, and precision bombings, failed to break a country that has distributed its military power across thousands of miles of fortified terrain. This brings us to Iran's ultimate point of leverage. At the bottom of the Persian Gulf sits the Strait of Hormuz. It is a tiny 33-kilometer bottleneck where 20% of the world's daily oil supply must pass through. Iran does not need to win a traditional war. By simply harassing a few cargo ships with cheap drones, they cause maritime insurance rates to skyrocket, freezing global shipping. They can target the vulnerable desalination plants that provide drinking water to the Gulf states, bringing allied economies to a halt. It is a perfect geopolitical stalemate. The U.S. cannot back down without risking the collapse of the petrodollar, and Iran refuses to halt its nuclear program because it views deterrence as its only guarantee of survival. The entire global economy remains caught in the middle of this standoff. Navigating these kinds of high-stakes, incredibly complex problems requires an enormous amount of coordination and support, which brings us to the crucial work being done by today's sponsor, DKNS.